let people know what kind of how truly of a great person Nicole was.
You know, they have to grow up not having their mom.
It was a night filled with music, laughter, and the promise of good memories. But before dawn, it would end in terror. On May 20th, 2016, Nicole VanderHeyden, a vibrant 31-year-old mother from Green Bay, Wisconsin, spent the evening out with friends and her boyfriend. She had every reason to look forward to life, a loving family, a little son who adored her, and dreams she was still chasing. But by sunrise, Nicole's lifeless body would be found discarded along a roadside, brutally beaten and silenced forever. The question that gripped the entire community was chilling: who could do this, and why? At first, all eyes turned to the man closest to her, her boyfriend, Douglas Detry. The argument they had that night made him an obvious suspect. But as detectives dug deeper, they would uncover a shocking twist: Nicole's killer wasn't her partner, wasn't a jealous lover, but a stranger lurking in the shadows. This is the story of betrayal, violence, and a horrifying crime that left a family shattered and a community searching for answers. You're watching More Crime, where real stories of crime and justice are brought into the light. New videos are uploaded every second day, so hit subscribe and turn on notifications, so you never miss the truth hidden in the dark. Nicole VanderHeyden, known as Nikki to those closest to her, was the kind of woman people gravitated toward. At 31, she was a mother of 3, with a warm personality that made her unforgettable. Her friends often described her as fun-loving and energetic, someone who could light up a room with her presence. She was building a life in Green Bay, Wisconsin, with her boyfriend, Douglas Detry, and their infant son. Though life wasn't perfect, Nikki remained a devoted mother and friend, always balancing her responsibilities with her lively spirit. On May 20th, 2016, Nikki and Douglas planned a rare night out. They arranged for a babysitter to watch their baby and headed to a concert in Green Bay, ready to enjoy themselves with friends. For much of the evening, things seemed normal: music, drinks, and laughter filled the night. But later, tensions began to rise. Nikki and Douglas argued, the kind of dispute couples sometimes have after a long night. The disagreement escalated, and by the time the group left the concert venue and went to a bar, their evening had soured. Douglas decided to leave early, heading back home alone. Nikki, however, wasn't ready for the night to end. She stayed out, moving between bars, continuing to drink, and later trying to get a ride home. Friends recalled that she seemed upset but determined to handle things on her own. What happened next remains a blur, but investigators would later piece together her movements. After leaving the last bar, Nikki was seen walking through the streets of Green Bay in the early morning hours. Somewhere in those dark, quiet moments, her path crossed with someone dangerous. When Nikki didn't return home, worry spread quickly. Her phone went silent, and hours passed without any word from her. By morning, an unsuspecting community would stumble upon a scene that turned unease into horror: a young mother's body left discarded near a roadside ditch, miles away from the city's lights. Her violent death was not just a tragedy for her family but a wake-up call for an entire community. Everyone wanted answers. Who had followed her? Who had the rage to end her life so brutally? And why did it happen on what should have been just an ordinary night out? The morning of May 21st, 2016, started like any other in Bellevue, a quiet suburb outside Green Bay. But by mid-morning, the peace shattered. A man walking his dog along a rural roadside made a horrifying discovery: the body of a young woman, partially clothed, lying in the ditch. Police quickly arrived and secured the scene. The victim showed clear signs of violence: she had been badly beaten, strangled, and left exposed in the grass. Within hours, detectives identified her as Nicole VanderHeyden, reported missing just hours earlier. For her family, the news was devastating. For the community, it was terrifying. The crime scene itself was puzzling. Nikki's body was found miles away from where she was last seen in Green Bay. There was no car nearby, no belongings, nothing that gave away who had taken her there. Whoever had done this had been careful, but not careful enough. Detectives collected DNA evidence from her body and clothing, hoping it would lead them to the killer. Attention turned immediately to Nicky's boyfriend, Douglas Detry. Investigators knew the couple had argued the night before, and statistics showed partners were often the first suspects in cases like this. Adding to suspicion, Douglas lived only a short drive from where Nicky's body was found. Detectives pressed him hard, combing through his phone records, movements, and even his home. But as the evidence rolled in, something didn't fit. Douglas's phone showed he had gone home after leaving the bar. Neighbors reported no unusual activity at his house. And when DNA results from Nicky's body came back, they did not match Douglas. The focus widened. Detectives sifted through Nicky's final hours, the bars she visited, the people she spoke to, the route she might have taken. Surveillance cameras captured her movements, showing a woman wandering the streets alone, vulnerable, in the early morning hours. Somewhere between her last steps in Green Bay and the rural ditch where she was found, someone had intercepted her. Community fear deepened. If Douglas wasn't responsible, then who was? Was a predator roaming the streets of Green Bay? Investigators knew the answers lay hidden in Nicky's final hours, and in the digital breadcrumbs left behind. As detectives retraced Nicole VanderHeyden's last night, the picture became both clearer and more complicated. Phone records, surveillance cameras, and eyewitness accounts all painted a timeline. Nicky had been drinking with friends, enjoying a night out, but tensions rose after a heated argument with her boyfriend, Douglas. Frustrated, she left the bar alone. In the early morning hours, cameras captured her walking through downtown Green Bay. Her steps were unsteady, her phone buzzing with unanswered messages. Somewhere along that walk, she vanished. At first, Douglas remained the prime suspect. Detectives searched his home, seized his car, even collected his clothing. But while suspicions lingered, evidence was thin. His alibi held up, and the DNA at the crime scene was not his. It left investigators at a frustrating dead end. Then came a breakthrough. A neighbor in Bellevue reported hearing screams and loud noises the night Nicky disappeared. Police canvassed the area and soon found a small patch of disturbed ground near another home, the property of George Stephen Birch, a name that would soon shock everyone. George was a 38-year-old drifter, recently out of prison, with a troubling history of violence. Investigators pulled his phone records and made a chilling discovery. His cell phone's data placed him near the very ditch where Nicky's body was dumped, at the exact timeframe of her death. Even more damning, when DNA results came back, it was a match. Still, Birch insisted on his innocence. During questioning, he spun a disturbing story. He admitted to being with Nicky that night, but he claimed it was Douglas who had killed her. According to Birch, he had been forced at gunpoint to move Nicky's body and keep quiet. It was a wild tale, and investigators immediately doubted it. The evidence stacked against Birch told a different story. His DNA was found under Nicky's fingernails, on her clothing, and even on her body. His phone's location data didn't just place him at the dump site, it traced his movements from Green Bay, to Nicky, and finally to the ditch. Douglas, on the other hand, was cleared by both physical evidence and digital records. The case was taking a sharp turn. For weeks, the community had quietly suspected Douglas. Now, the real picture was emerging. Nicky had crossed paths with a predator that night, and George Birch's violent past had caught up with him. When George Birch was brought to trial in 2017, the courtroom was tense. Nicole VanderHeyden's family filled the benches, desperate for justice, while the defense prepared a strategy no one expected. Prosecutors laid out a damning case. They presented the DNA evidence, the phone location data, and the testimony of forensic experts. Piece by piece, they showed how Birch's movements matched the timeline of Nicky's disappearance and murder. It was compelling, leaving little room for doubt. But Birch's defense team shocked everyone by pointing the finger back at Nicky's boyfriend, Douglas. They argued that Douglas had the motive, jealousy and rage. And that Birch had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. According to their version, Douglas had killed Nikki, then forced Birch at gunpoint to dispose of her body. It was a desperate story, one that infuriated Nikki's family. Douglas himself took the stand, visibly shaken, and testified that he had nothing to do with the crime. The prosecution countered by reminding the jury that Douglas's DNA was nowhere at the crime scene, while Birch's was everywhere. Perhaps the most damaging blow to Birch's credibility came from his own digital footprint. His phone not only tracked his steps with Nikki but also showed that he had returned home afterward, calm and calculated, not the behavior of a man acting under duress. The jury deliberated for only a few hours before returning their verdict, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide. Birch was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Nikki's loved ones, it was a bittersweet moment. Justice had been served, but it could never bring her back. Nicole VanderHeyden's murder left behind a void that could never be filled. She was remembered as a vibrant mother, a loving daughter, and a woman who only wanted to enjoy a night out before tragedy struck. Her 3 children were forced to grow up without her warmth, and her family carried the weight of unimaginable grief. Yet, out of that darkness came a determination to keep her memory alive. Nikki's loved ones organized memorials and spoke publicly about the dangers women face, even in seemingly safe communities. Her story became a reminder that evil can hide in plain sight, and that one careless encounter can end in tragedy. The case also highlighted the importance of technology in modern investigations. Phone records, GPS data, and DNA evidence worked together to unmask her killer, setting a precedent for how digital trails could lead to justice. Today, her family continues to honor her life, refusing to let her be remembered only as a victim. They remind the world that Nikki was more than a headline, she was a mother, a friend, and a life cut short far too soon. Nicole VanderHeyden's story is one that chills the heart and reminds us how fragile life truly is. She was a mother, a friend, a daughter, a woman who deserved safety, not a violent end. Her case teaches us the importance of awareness, of valuing every moment, and of standing against the evil that hides in plain sight. If this story moved you, I ask you to take a moment to support this channel, More Crime, where we bring you the real stories that must never be forgotten. Hit the like button, share this video so her story reaches more people, and subscribe if you haven't already. New true crime stories are uploaded every second day, and you won't want to miss them.